Hi guys, my name's Danny George. I'm one of the international marshals for Buhurt International. I'm also one of the board of directors, and I helped, alongside Stephen Slater, the head marshal for Buhurt International, put together the new BI Profight or Trans rules. I've been asked just to put together a quick video that talks over the scorecard specifically, how the scorecard is designed, how it works, and how it gets filled in by the line marshals judging pro fights. So hopefully this video will be informative. So what you see on screen here is the scorecard. I've already pre-populated it with some numbers which we'll talk through, but effectively the scorecard will be given to the line marshal blank before the pro fight that they're about to judge. They will infill their name. So as you can see, I've put mine at the top, Danny George. They will infill the name of the fighters in the red and blue corner. So in this instance, we've got Joe in the red and Jim in the blue. Starting from the top, we've got these larger boxes under each round, one for red and one for blue. And this is the round counting and observations area. So this is effectively the working out area, or working area where the line marshal who's counting the fight can put the workings out, can scribble anything that they feel needs to be noted down on the scorecard. It goes without saying the line marshals are counting both fighters simultaneously, as they would have done under previous pro fight rules. So they are taking notes of hits and takedowns for both fighters throughout the round. But at the end of the round, this area is where they can note down their observations. And then underneath that for the round are the actual defined boxes for each element. So we've got total effective strikes, so for the number of strikes counted, total effective takedowns, again for the number of takedowns achieved, total loss of weapon, total armor failures, and any point deductions that may be applicable as a result of armor failures, loss of weapons, or yellow cards. One thing to note about this as well is this is set out in terms of strikes, takedowns, weapons failures, armor failures, and point deductions to kind of replicate the criteria by priority. So the criteria by priority is how we objectively judge the fight to determine the winner of the round. So effective striking is our first point here. Then it's effective grappling, then list control, then aggression, and then effective defense in that order. So when we're judging a fight and after we've counted and we've jotted down our observations, and when we run through this, we'll be looking at these in that order from effective striking down through the list. Okay. The criteria that defines the win are based down here. So there's an aid memoir built into the actual BI scoring sheet, the scorecard, to help the line marshals differentiate the numbers that they're going to be infilling up here. So you'll see that the win criteria is effective striking first. Then if that is even, we would move to effective grappling. Then we would move to effective list control, then aggression, then defense. Okay, so if we get through effective striking and there is a differential to actually decide the round, we don't have to move on down the hierarchy. We would only do that if one of these criteria is even in order of priority. So an even round based on striking is if the striking total is 5 or less. So between the two fighters, there's 5 or less strikes. That's judged as even in the course of a 90-second or a 2-minute round. At that point, we would then look at other criteria and go down the list. On a striking front, slight win is 6 to 10. So a 10-9 round based on striking would be 6 to 10 above your opponent. A moderate round would be 11 to 15 above your opponent in striking, and dominant would be 16 or more. Okay, so it's always striking first as the win criteria in terms of points accumulated. If that is considered even, so within 5 strikes or less, we then work our way along the hierarchy to see if we can determine a winner for the round. So coming back to the scenario here that I've filled in, Joe got 24 strikes, Jim got 20. There was 1 takedown for Joe on this side. So I as the judge, the line marshal, will fill in 24 and 20. And I'll also put my 1 takedown in there for the red corner. Then I'll look down here. Okay, strike differential, there's 4 points difference. So the difference in strikes is 5 or less. Therefore, in this particular instance, on striking alone, it's an even round. Okay, so you'll see I've highlighted even here. On the day that could be circled or ticked, it doesn't matter, as long as we differentiate that me as the line marshal, based on my score here, my differential is seeing that as even for the striking. So then we go down this hierarchy. So we've got a striking that's even, we go to grappling. Well, in effective grappling, we've got a takedown that was scored by Joe here, which obviously put him in an advantageous position from a grappling point of view. So there's an advantage that we give to red at that point. Now at this point, it was one takedown. It wasn't multiple, it was one. And there was the slight strike differential, even though it was even. So it's a slight round win in favour of the red corner and Joe Bloggs. So a slight win is 10-9. So down here in the round result, I put 10 in the red and I put 9 in the blue. Okay. So we move on to the second round then. So they fight the second round. I get 12 strikes for Joe, 15 for Jim, and 1 armour failure here in my observations. Okay. So again, total effective strikes, 12 and 15, which is just a replication of my observations. Down here, I've noted that there was 1 armour failure, and then I reference at the bottom here what an armour failure means. So for each 90 seconds granted for an armour failure repair, 1 point deduction from the fighter's round score. So it was 1 armour failure. It was fixed within the 90 seconds because that is literally 1. So it's 1 point deduction. So striking differential is 3. Difference in effective strikes is 5 or less. It's an even round on striking. We had no takedowns between the two. So in the grappling side of things, it was relatively even as we judge the round. So again, we're even there, even there. For the benefit of the round, this was going to be a close round. It was back and forth. Nobody really had more control, more aggression, or any better defense than one another. So we're considering this even all the way through. That's where things like this armour failure can make the difference. So because of this point deduction, an even round at 10-10 becomes a 10-9 in favour of Jim, because the armour failure deducts the 1 point away from Joe. So at this point now, we've got a 10 and a 9 and a 9 and a 10. The 2 rounds are even across the 2. So in a normal fight format, we're going to a 3rd round now because we're at a draw across 2 rounds. So in this particular scenario, Jim's decided he's going to chuck it all out there. Joe's a little bit too tired and wasn't prepared for 3 rounds. Joe scores 15 strikes landed. Jim scores 22, but he also gets a takedown within that. So again, we fill the boxes in. So 15 in strikes, 22 and 1 takedown. And then I start here with my criteria by priority. So there's a 7 strike difference here now. So I come down to the bottom. So it's more than 5. So it's not an even round on striking. It's between 6 and 10. So it's a slight advantage. Okay. So in this particular scenario, we've given blue a slight advantage, and we've given them the slight advantage there. That then becomes a 10-9 round for blue. So we've had our 3 rounds. On my scorecard now, I need to total up how I see the fight. So I add these numbers up for each competitor, and I get 28 for Joe. I get 29 for Jim. So in this scenario on my card, after 3 rounds, I have Jim winning the fight, 29-28. What happens then is my scorecard will be presented to the secretary along with the other 2 line marshals. The secretary will review the fight result here on each card, and that will determine the kind of result that we've got. So we know we've gone to a decision, but what type of a decision? If all 3 scorecards see it in favour of the blue corner, so we're all in agreement that Jim won the fight, that would be a unanimous decision. The same as in boxing, the same as in MMA. If it was 2 for the blue corner and 1 for the red corner, so we have 2 line marshals have seen it for the blue corner and 1 has seen it for the red corner, that would be a split decision. Same as boxing, same as MMA. If 1 saw it one way for red, 1 saw it for blue, and then the other marshal had it as a draw, we would have a draw. And that's the way that we go through. So it is a very much a 10-point must system. We've just made it objective for the criteria for us to be able to determine who won that round. The scorecard itself, like I say, is relatively straightforward. We've kept it simple so that the line marshals are able to fill it in, to be able to understand how we're scoring these fights and ultimately how the criteria shake down. And once the fight result has been announced, these scorecards can be reviewed and can be requested by the fighters should they wish to after the fight result. So they're there for you to look at. They're there for you, obviously, to review. And it's all about, obviously, being transparent, but keeping it simple and a nice, even level playing field for everybody. So yeah, nice and straightforward. If there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, Danny George. Please feel free to reach out to your local head marshal for your conference, or your deputy, or even Stephen, who's obviously the head marshal that had a lot of involvement in this alongside myself. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Hopefully it's relatively self-explanatory. And what I would say as well is, for those of you that haven't had a chance to kind of interact with this yet and tried it, please do try it in training. Try some Profights, try counting it, try using the scorecards, because it will help you as a fighter or as a corner person get a better understanding of how the criteria apply and how the fights would be seen. One thing that I am happy to be able to say is that from running it at Carnage and from running it at an event here in the UK, the SKF, of all the decisions that we've had, I don't think there's been any that have been contested. And out of the ones that we've had, it did seem, the common thread was that the fighter that was seen to have won from the outside was the fighter that was judged to have won based on the line marshal's observations. Obviously, we're running this for this season to really get into the nitty-gritty of it, and hopefully we'll see more outcomes. But yeah, please feel free to use it. Please feel free to raise any questions that you may have. And yeah, have fun with it.